What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today I am going to be bringing you part 4 of my Journey to Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore series. Today I'm going to be talking about Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the 4th film in the Harry Potter series. Not the best. It may be my least favorite, in all honesty, but let's just get into the positives first of all. In regards to what I like about the film, I feel like this goes without saying, but Brendan Gleeson really does steal the show as Alistair Moody. He's so gleefully insane in this film and such a fun and quirky character. He really does carry it, in my opinion. I love all of the hints that are given that eventually lead up to the twist that he is Barty Crouch Jr., all the scenes between him and his father, Barty Crouch, and the hints about Polyjuice Potion. Moaning Myrtle tells Harry that Polyjuice Potion has been scattered throughout the school, and Snape tells Harry that someone's been stealing from his store. All of those pieces are set up and I feel paid off extremely well by the end of the film. And I also love the kind of creepy buildup of dread that the film pulls off. The opening scene is a shot of the graveyard where Harry eventually fights Voldemort, and throughout the film, Harry has these nightmares of this graveyard. So once Harry and Cedric are taken there via the portkey, it really does feel like the payoff of all of the dread that the film has been building up. Before I start crapping all over this film, I do want to clarify that on a technical level, I do think it is extremely well made. It's well directed, there are a variety of very creative shots, and it's an entertaining film to watch. I always have a fun time watching it. I don't want to make it sound like I think this is an awful film or anything, especially in regards to other book adaptations that are out there, like the Percy Jackson films. Like, those are awful. It's nowhere near that level, but when I compare it to the book, which I also grew up with, it kind of pales in comparison, and I do think overall it is one of, if not the weakest, Harry Potter film. Now, I feel like this may be a result of the fact that the director, Mike Newell, did not like the book that this film was based on. If you look at any interviews, or even at the 20th anniversary special that was recently released on HBO, it's very clear that Newell does not like the Goblet of Fire book. He states that it's like a brick, and while I can agree with that, it's a very dense and long book. He didn't really pay attention, and there are a lot of times in this film where it feels like there's a lack of attention to detail. For example, whenever Mad-Eye Moody is looking at someone through his eye, there's some sort of mechanical sound effect, which seems very strange because it's a magical eye, and it's just kind of a lack of attention to detail because it's like, oh, I guess he's got some sort of robot eye. Like, I don't know, that just is kind of stupid. And also, countless people have mentioned this, but in the final battle, Voldemort refers to Harry's mother as being a filthy muggle, which is incredibly inaccurate because Harry's mother was not a muggle. She was a witch, but she was born of muggle parents, which means she is a muggle-born or mudblood, not a muggle. That's very inaccurate, and it just shows that the director didn't like the source material. And that's not very good because you want to hire someone who at least likes the source material that they're making the film for. And once again, while it is an entertaining film, it does feel like the director had a lack of passion and is trying to almost mold this film into being his own thing, which is not something you want to do. I mean, it's okay to add in your own unique flair, but at the same time, you do need to respect the source material, and in this case, I do not feel like Mike Newell did. This film also feels strangely unfocused. It's very difficult to describe, but there are a multitude of plot lines that feel either rushed, underdeveloped, or unnecessary altogether, particularly Ron getting mad at Harry. This is the point in the series where everyone starts getting mad at each other for no reason, so Ron gets mad at Harry for some reason at the beginning of the film, and he starts becoming best buds with Seamus, and he and Harry are at odds. But then, randomly 20 minutes later, he's like, alright, I've gotten over my weird anger towards you, let's be friends again. And I know that is a result of the fact that this is a film and not a book, so they couldn't really space that out properly, but it feels very rushed in the context of the film because Harry's like, it took you long enough to come around, man, and it doesn't really feel like we saw that play out properly. It feels kind of rushed and squeezed into the runtime of the film, and Rita Skeeter in this film is completely unnecessary. There are a lot of plot lines that were cut from the book, particularly Hermione putting together her whole congregation of house elves spew Winky the house elf is completely cut. Dobby was originally the one that gave Harry Gillyweed and not Neville. There are a lot of plot lines that were cut out, but that's fine, they weren't really necessary. But Rita Skeeter's plotline was resolved in the book. She's this nosy reporter who pops her head in at the most inopportune moments, and at the end of the book it is revealed that she is in fact an animagus and has been stalking them as a beetle, which means that was paid off in the book. But in the film, she does her thing, she pops in, she's annoying, but then she disappears from the story and we never hear from her again. And it just feels rather strange because there were so many other plot lines that were cut. I don't see why they didn't cut that out, because in the long run, it was completely unnecessary. She just shows up at a couple points and then leaves. In the book, we find out that's because Hermione actually caught her in a jar, but it's just kind of unnecessary in the movie, and it could have focused its priorities more. As I said, it feels very unfocused, and I feel like that is a result of the fact that the director just didn't have a lot of passion for the source material. I also feel like this film is perhaps the most memeable of the franchise. I'll leave it up to you to decide on whether or not that's a good or bad thing, but Michael Gambon in this film is extremely distracting. He was fine in Prisoner of Azkaban. It wasn't so noticeable to me that it was him and not Richard Harris playing Dumbledore, and there were some funny and quirky moments that felt very befitting of the character of Dumbledore.
We did it.
Did what? Good night.
But when you get to this film, it's very obvious that he's no longer playing Dumbledore, he's playing himself. It's been memed on countless times, but the scene where he comes charging down the staircase and slams Harry into a wall is completely out of character, and there are many moments in the film where he just starts screaming at people, and it's really funny, but at the same time extremely out of character for Albus Dumbledore, and I'm not sure if this is a result of bad casting or not, but the actor who plays Barty Crouch in this film is hilarious. I mean, just watch this.
The Chinese fireball.
One more thing I feel I should mention is that the thing that should feel the most exciting about this film is almost the most underwhelming thing about it, and that is the Triwizard Tournament. Each one of the tasks feels rather boring and as if there is a lack of stakes involved, despite how many characters state that the Triwizard Tournament has claimed many lives in the past. The first task makes terrible use of one of the most key fundamentals of storytelling in film, and that is show don't tell. We are simply told by Hagrid that the Hungarian Horntail is a pretty nasty creature, although we never see that on display. Once we get to the task, we simply rush past all the other competitors' battles with their dragons, and Harry just fights the Hungarian Horntail, defeats it, and we're over and done with and moving on. The second task is the least worst handled out of the three, because there's still something at stake. All of the competitors' friends and loved ones are being held at the bottom of the Black Lake, so there is something at stake, but it doesn't feel like the Grindylows play as large a role as they did in the book. Fleur is grabbed by them, and then Harry has a brief scuffle with them before he's able to ascendio himself out of the water. It doesn't really feel like there's a sense of tension during that scene, which I feel was key to making it work. In the book, I remember rather vividly a very tense scene of Harry trying to remember the name of the spell that he can use on the Grindylows, but in the film, it doesn't really feel like there's a very visceral sense to it. It's just kind of something that they had to throw in there because they were obligated to, rather than it being something which adds to the suspense of the moment. And don't even get me started on the third task. In the book, I remember it being a rather fun and creative sequence where each of the competitors has to face off against some sort of creature. I remember there being Dementors and Acromantulas, but in the film, they just kind of walk around in the dark for a couple minutes, and the maze blows wind at them and closes in on them. Possibly the most boring execution of that scene they could have gone for. And during the maze scene, Cedric decides to attack Victor Crumb for some reason, and they try to explain that away by having Dumbledore state before they go into the maze that the maze may change you and make you forget who you were. But it makes Dumbledore's words at the end of the film feel hollow, because he states that Cedric was true and loyal and good at heart, but we don't really ever see him exhibit any of the characteristics that Dumbledore associates with him. From the very beginning, he was designed as a stereotype, and he remains a stereotype. I know that I've been trashing this film, and I probably sound like I hate it, but believe me, I don't. It has a special place in my heart, and I grew up with it, but it does feel like it does the least good job of all the films of adapting the book's story as well as being an engaging story on its own. But at the end of the day, it does serve its purpose. The entire purpose of this film in the narrative is to have Voldemort return at the end to set up the rest of the story. It gets that point across very well, and as I stated, the kind of main plot running throughout it with Moody and Harry and the buildup of dread to the graveyard showdown is well executed. So the core of the story was well handled and conveyed, but everything surrounding that just felt very muddled and unfocused. But all in all, it's still a fun and entertaining film, and I'm looking forward to rewatching Order of the Phoenix next week. You guys please let me know all your thoughts in the comments below on Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.